podcast listener. If you're sick of playing small in life and want to transition to a bolder, better you, you're in the right place. I'm Kimberly Rich, and this is the Bold Life Movement podcast. From business, money, marketing, and systems, to spirituality, self-love, creativity, and personal growth, each week, the Bold Life Movement will bring you inspiring stories from real people. Learn from successful entrepreneurs, innovators, best-selling authors, and creators, and leverage your own inner boldness to create an unconventional and truly rich life. Welcome back to the Bold Life Movement podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and this is episode 48 with Bridgette Mayer. I invited Bridgette on the show because I wanted to show what is possible when you decide that your past does not dictate your future and you commit to your dreams. Bridgette's early childhood was rough, and after abuse and neglect, she found her way to foster home after foster home and eventually onto the streets. She was later adopted by an incredible family, and it was in that moment that she decided to change her life forever. She's now a successful art dealer, art curator, author, and entrepreneur, and she helps other artists and creatives find their way to a lucrative 6- and 7-figure business with their own work. Her early background and current success has spurred her to write her recent book entitled The Art Cure, a memoir of abuse and fortune. And her mission is to continue to inspire those around her, especially artists, women, and entrepreneurs, to live the life they dream even in the face of insurmountable obstacles. Bridgette and I talk about everything from ways in which artists can start to create that lucrative career with their work, to her methods for sourcing the knowledge that she needed to grow her business to multiple 7 figures, and to the one book that she credits her first $1 million to. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Please welcome the one and only Bridgette Mayer. Bridgette, well, thank you so much for coming on the Bold Life Movement podcast. I'm super excited to connect, and I'm really happy for you and your new book. Do you want to show it? I think you have a copy, right?
Yes, thank you so much. This is the Art Cure, a memoir of abuse and fortune. My new book. It's out right now on Amazon, and I'm really excited to share it with you.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of background. Your background with art. Like, when did you first realize that this was something that was pulling you, not just personally, but professionally?
It started when I was younger, and I talk about some early stories of my childhood. I was adopted when I was 9 years old, and prior to that, I had a very challenging childhood. I grew up in an inner city, a ghetto part of Jersey City, New Jersey. And we didn't have any toys and things to play with. So I started finding creative ways to entertain myself and my siblings. And I think at that time, that's when I had an inkling that I was creative. And it continued really into high school with art classes and really being pulled to make art and make things, and continued into college. And then when I declared my major, I knew I wanted to be a studio art history major. I was working in a gallery at the time at Bucknell University. Okay. I worked there for 4 years, and I spent my summers working in New York in the gallery world and museum world. So I knew... Wow. I just kept gravitating towards that industry, and it was a place that I felt excited and creative and also really comfortable.
So right now you have a studio in Philadelphia, so you're curating the works of other people, right?
Yes, I have an art gallery in Philadelphia. Now it's a private gallery, which means that I see people by appointment, and I moved from a public model to a private model because many of my artists I've been working with the past 16 years, and we're doing larger, more global type projects with commissions and mural projects around the world, museum shows. So for me, it meant kind of switching my business model to make it a little more accessible for me to do more on a global scale with the artist and new projects. And also part of my time is spent in California, where I have an art advisory office outside of Los Angeles. So I'm now bi-coastal, and I've been doing this for 2 years. And so it gives me more flexibility.
And variety.
And variety. I'm
Yeah.
definitely a variety person.
Me too. That's
Yeah.
one of my higher needs.
Yes,
So I can
me
recognize
too.
that.
Uh-huh.
So, for someone who's like outside of that industry, moving from a public model to a private model, give me a little bit more insight into that, because I feel like that ties into how you coach other artists and other people in this world on going from just being like struggling to get your art out there to really scaling and being a business owner in this industry. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, wow, that's a big question. And I think for me, it starts, I've been running my gallery business 16 years. And the first 5, I was really in growth, stay alive, struggle mode.
Yeah.
And then I reached a really nice plateau where things started to snowball for me. And I started to grow rapidly. And part of that growth was always looking beyond the gallery walls and looking beyond the walls of my actual business into other areas that I could take artists and do projects that weren't necessarily going to be happening inside the gallery. So, it meant going to art fairs, which are widely known in my industry. It's kind of like a trade show for art.
Cool.
It meant offering consulting opportunities for individuals and corporations to work with me one-on-one. And then it meant taking on larger consulting projects where instead of walking in and bringing in a few paintings and maybe selling 1 or 2 paintings, I was selling, 200 to 300 paintings and giving artists an opportunity to do commission artwork. So the projects grew in scope. And then it evolved into me doing public art consulting and consulting for various cities on art programming and projects. And now my next evolution is really this book and sharing my story and how I created a business model really from scratch. No clients, no money. I had an idea of how the industry worked from working in it, and a dream, and how I built it from zero to a multi-million-dollar business. And so that's part of my next project. And I did a workshop this past summer that was a 4-hour workshop for artists on how to build their careers and how to have a vision and create a vision for what they want professionally, and really actually how to make money. My goal is to get more artists making a living and thriving and enjoying what they're doing professionally. So I will be doing more workshops, and I'm also running coaching programs one-on-one and for groups of artists right now.
Awesome. So backtracking just a little bit, I want to hear more about the coaching side and the services that you're offering following the launch of the book. But for people that are just starting out, like what kind of business skills, or I'm sorry, where did you learn the kind of business skills that you needed to grow your business if you didn't have anyone to teach you?
Well, I was someone where I had a lot of jobs starting at 12 years old.
Okay.
And I was constantly absorbing information around me. And when I was in high school, I started a few businesses on my own, a babysitting business, a house cleaning business, and I actually was making pretty good cash. And I learned how to advertise and market. And then in college, just really absorbed every single information every piece of information I could. I would work in a job, I would learn all the systems, and I would really figure out how I could operate in the best way for my employer. And that was really my mindset. And at the time, I wasn't really reading any business books that I think now people are doing more reading, and there's podcasts like your podcasts and blogs, and there's so much content on the internet to learn from. And for me, it was really hands-on learning with working in various jobs. And then I would get really good at it, and then I would jump into the next job and learn from the ground up. When I was in college, I had a job at the theater department at Bucknell, and I learned how to market something from start to finish, and in this case, theater productions. And I was working in a gallery and learning how to advertise and market to various groups of people we were trying to pull in. So I learned a lot through my actual jobs. And if we fast forward to 2000, before I started my gallery, I had a moment of frustration where I wasn't making any money. And literally after you take out the taxes, I was making less than $10 an hour. And I quickly realized living I had lived in New York and I was making a similar salary. I was living in Philadelphia trying to scrape by, and I really did want to be in the art world. So in a moment of sheer frustration, I asked myself, well, who is making money in the art world? So to me, that's asking the right question.
Yeah,
and I think
for
a
sure.
lot of times we're going through our days and a lot of people are struggling, but they're really not asking themselves any questions about what do I want to do? What is my true calling? What would make me happy? What is my passion? What is my talent? What am I really good at that I love doing? And for me, I knew it was to be in the gallery and art world, but I also knew I wanted to make a living and thrive and not scrape by. So asking that question led me to go actually pick up my first business book. And I found a
finding
book.
models, finding mentors, whether in person or in writing.
Yeah, yeah. So one of my first models was or mentor was Michael Gerber, and Michael actually wrote the foreword to my book.
Oh.
And he has a great book called The Entrepreneurial Myth. And so that was really, truly the first book on business that I read that really sparked my whole gallery revolution for me. And then I quickly moved on to a Tony Robbins book called Awaken the Giant Within. And I read that book after being in business and feeling like I was stuck financially and I couldn't expand my business to do some of the things that I wanted to do financially. So I started doing a lot of goal setting and a lot of planning that led to some rapid results within a few months. It was great.
Have you been to any of his conferences?
I've been to all of his conferences, and
I'm actually going to Date with Destiny in a few weeks, and I just got back crewing UPW.
So I've crewed UPW.
Oh my gosh!
And, I actually, because I had done the seminar a few times, and I had some of my gallery employees in one of the workshops, and I was volunteering, and one of my cousins was doing it. And so I went just to volunteer and crew that weekend.
Yeah.
And I ended up meeting my current husband, who was also at the event, and he was working for Tony Robbins at the time.
I just got chills.
Yeah, and so that was one of my things that I was working on at the time was manifesting the right man, and I really wanted to have a great marriage and start a family, and
That's getting me, Bridgette.
Oh my! I had been in and out of like not so great relationships for me, and I had created a vision. This is so cool because actually, it comes from one of the leadership coaches at Tony Robbins. I sat down with him, and his specialty was relationships. And he said, "Well, you have a business plan. Have you ever written a model for what you're looking for in your husband?" And I was like, no, that sounds crazy. I've never even heard of that. And he said, well, like anything, you have to have it starts with a vision, and then you write it down and you set goals around it. So I sat with him for 2 hours and wrote a vision for my ideal husband. And then I started meditating and thinking about it. And literally a few months later, had no idea. I'm in this crewing this event, and there are over 5,000 people there.
Yeah. Which event was it?
It was UPW.
No, which city?
In Orlando, in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And I had been running late. I was a day late to the event because there was a hurricane and I couldn't get flights out. So I got there. They kind of threw me in the room and said, "You're going to help seat people over here, and here's your partner." And the gentleman that I was with was holding up a sign that said "Buddy."
Yes.
And like, as in buddy system.
Yep.
So I was working with him, and we were there to help people connect if they needed a partner to do some of the workshop with. And Tarek, my husband, walks by and sees the sign, and his dog's name is Buddy. So that first caught his attention. And then he saw me and he's like, oh, there's this attractive female standing next to this Buddy sign. So he took it as a sign. So he came over and we started talking about our dogs. And so, literally within the first half hour of me being in this room with 5,000 people plus, boom, we connect. And we started a long distance relationship and got married a few years later. And so you just never know what you're creating and how it's going to manifest and unfold. And I'm really a believer in it. I've seen it in all areas of my life, but most especially my business, because I've been spending a lot of time working on it for the last 18 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you mentioned Tony Robbins. Honestly, having just gotten back from crewing and this millions of serendipitous moments and, the overflowing, the feeling of love that I have and appreciation. It's so cool to hear someone else's story.
Oh, yeah.
From these magical events, which I cannot talk enough about.
Yes, I feel the same way.
Yeah. My list, I'm either weeding out or attracting all the right listeners by all the Tony Robbins conversations that I've had over the past few months. So I love that. I'll have to mention that in our crew Facebook group.
Oh,
that we chatted, that we're connecting.
Well, I mean, I read Awaken the Giant Within, and within a year had made $1 million, and my feeling was, this guy seems to be doing well. He's really powerful. He knows what he's talking about. I have nothing to lose. I only have everything to gain.
Totally.
And it was an experiment. I said, I'm going to try everything he's laying out. I'm going to be really hardcore about it. I have nothing to lose, and I'm going to give it a shot. And within a few weeks, I saw results financially, and then it just kept snowballing. So I really attribute making my first $1 million to Tony Robbins and his book, Awaken the Giant Within. So I hope people will get that book. It's really great.
Yeah, we'll definitely have that along with yours hooked up in the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So as much as I could talk about our Tony Robbins experiences for the full length of the interview, I do want to get back a little bit to the book and to the work that you're doing now. And one of the questions that I had was the people that you're working with. Do you feel that anyone with any medium can become financially successful with their art?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And so what does that look like?
I should say, if that's what they desire, if that's what they're being called to do on a really deep, true level, then yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly know artists that are doing that on a very superficial level that are also successful, but I really believe it starts at the deepest level of your own authenticity and why you're making what you're making. So I do believe that. And I see a lot of artists who are very talented, but they're caught in a negative way of thinking, and it's kind of a downward spiral, and their self-image doesn't really match oftentimes the quality and the talent that they have. So for me, I love working with people and trying to grow their self-image and have it actually be a match with oftentimes the quality and beauty of the work that they're making.
So do you feel like it's people's sense of imposter syndrome and just limiting beliefs around what's possible that's actually holding them back? It's not the caliber of their work?
I think most of it happens between your ears, which is in the brain. And this is not the stuff that I've learned through running my business and working with clients and working with artists. You don't find it in books, and it's not taught in art school. And, different ways of thinking with empowerment and thinking around growth and creating a vision around an art career is really not taught anywhere. And that's why I'm really being called to work with artists in this way.
Yeah. So what kind of habits and beliefs do seven-figure artists have? Like, what are some of the fundamental principles that you help to impart in your clients and your students?
Great. I think first it starts with I have a vision as an artist for what I'm making. I have a very clear, deep purpose for how I want my art to make an impact on the world. This is why I'm working with this medium, this imagery, this style of painting, and they can actually articulate it clearly. And then it starts around erasing some of the thoughts and often how we grew up around money. And for me, as someone that grew up in sheer poverty, literally with no food, once I started my business, I really had to reprogram what I thought was possible for me financially. And one of my goals was to be a millionaire. And I remember writing it down and thinking, wow, like this is crazy. And it happened sooner than I ever imagined. And now I'm a multi-millionaire, and I never imagined that would happen either, but I just kept raising the bar for myself. And so for artists, it starts with, I do a lot of working around vision, goals, clarity, work around money, what is possible for them financially, getting into thinking about multiple businesses and ideas to have other streams of income that support each other.
Yeah.
And so,
of just their ability to produce art. Because
yeah,
that's time.
Yeah. Yep. I recently helped an artist who was a really great art writer start a writing business. And, not only is that thriving, but she's now selling more art. And so they all feed into each other. So I get into a lot of the fundamental stuff and mindset. And oftentimes, too, with money, people don't know how to think about goal setting around money, how to even put it down on paper. And then when artists do make money from their art sales, how to allocate it properly. Because a lot of times, if you're not used to having money, you might get a check and then, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 20,000, and then it's gone. And I've watched this syndrome happen in my own business and even around some of my coaching clients. And so I've realized now I have to put an early emphasis on not just making the money, but contributing back to yourself, family, community, and allocating it and saving it too so that it doesn't disappear.
Yeah, it's all about creating the right habits to have the life that you want, to be the person that you want, the business owner, the artist. Because if your habit is to spend outside your means, well, if your means increase, you're just going to increase your spending.
Exactly. And you see that.
Yeah, for sure. I love the example about the artist creating the stemmed off writing career. Do you have other examples from some of your clients of, what going from being an artist to being a successful entrepreneur and artist looks like?
Do I have examples of other businesses people have started? Sure. Another coaching client of mine, I helped her launch a magazine for artists. So that was another business. And she had a lot of ideas with that. So I helped her launch it. And then, with my marketing experience, we added marketing components and concepts that she really wasn't exploring that are going to bring her multiple streams of income.
Awesome. Like advertising within the magazine?
That's cool. I've helped someone launch a web business. I've helped someone launch selling art online business besides their own art.
Yeah.
So, it could be, and then really the meat of the work, I don't want to turn off people that don't want to launch other businesses, because really the foundation for many of the artists is I have a studio full of artwork. I want to sell it. I don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to get the work out there. So really, I would say 80% of my coaching work is around that. And then we step back and look at the whole picture and see what they want to create, why they're making the work, how they need to articulate what they're doing to draw the right audience. And then once the audience is standing in front of them, or the person, how to actually have the confidence and the language to sell and to connect with people. And part of that is them knowing their purpose and making the work.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists, they know it, but they've never talked about it. They've never written it down. So once they are really connected to it, it becomes much easier to connect with other people and ultimately to sell the work. And
Yeah.
I've created a lot of studio events with artists, helping them figure out great events. One of my artists that I'm coaching is working on what she calls a paint splash party. And it's for children and families and
Oh, I love
couples. And
that.
she creates this amazing event where communities or individuals can come together and have a paint splash experience. And so just really fun, great stuff
I
that's
love
really
that.
resonating with them on an individual level.
Well, if you have any clients that are in Austin hosting events, let me know. I'd be very
Okay.
interested to
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
spent this past weekend at the East Side Studio Tour. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not actually.
Oh, it's great. It's hundreds and hundreds of galleries and homes on the east side of Austin that open their
Uh-huh.
doors and just host different artists, and you can come through all weekend long. There's free drinks and food and parties. It's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good community activity for the artists in the Austin area.
That's great. I
Very
love it.
cool. Well, I have just a couple more questions, but before we wrap up, I did want to make sure that everyone knows where to go to get access to your offerings and to purchase your book.
Great. The book is on Amazon, The Art Cure by Bridgette Mayer. And then you can go to my website, Bridgette Mayer, Mayer.com. And all my info is up there, and including the book. And then if you want to see the artist and my client projects, you could go to BridgetteMayerGallery.com or BridgetteMayerArtAdvisors.com.
Awesome.
So those sites. Yeah.
Awesome. So I also did want to take a moment and acknowledge you. I love that you just held up the book because one of the
Yes.
things that I wanted to acknowledge you for is that cover.
Oh,
I
thank you.
love the cover. I feel like
Yes.
you and your team did such an awesome job picking something that really embodies what the book is about, which is like the
Yeah.
beauty emerging from the dark. And
Yes.
I just love the concept. And I think that as an artist and an art advisor, it's important
Yes.
to have something that's powerful like that. So I wanted
Oh,
to acknowledge you
yeah.
for that.
Thank you. And it ties into a story in my book that's in the book forward. So people might enjoy reading it.
Awesome. And we'll definitely
Yeah.
have an image of the book in the show notes for anyone who's not watching this on YouTube. So they can go
Great.
check that out. And the other thing that I wanted to give you credit for is just your ability to be a beacon for not just artists and showing them what's possible for their career, but also people who come from difficult backgrounds and
Yeah.
really exemplifying that your past does not dictate your future and you have complete control over your destiny. And I love that, and I give you credit for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And that was really the impetus for me to write the book, just wanting to show people a model and to hopefully be a role model for artists and younger women who aren't sure how to have a career in the art world or a creative industry, and to give my example as an extreme case of abuse and neglect and into adoption, and then what's possible for you in the art world. Because I feel like I wrote my own story. It wasn't scripted for me. There
Yeah.
weren't people kind of showing me the way. I really had to pave my own path and figure it out. And so it took me a long time. And if I can take people on a journey and get them there faster than I did, and not have it take them 16 to 18 years to make their first $1 million and have a successful art business, then I'm excited to do that right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Bridget, I do have two final questions. I ask these at the end of every episode. And so I love that we were talking about the questions you initially ask your clients, which is like, what's the purpose behind their work? Because what I want to know is, what is your purpose? What is your why for everything that you've created and the life that you lead?
Oh. Wow, what is my why? I mean, my why is to add more beauty to the world through the artist and the artwork that I get to work with, and to connect my clients and various communities with the joy of living with art and working with artists, because it's truly an extraordinary experience when you get to do that. So that's my purpose, and to teach what I know to everyone that wants to learn.
I love it. And I
Yeah.
definitely I'm glad that we had this conversation. I have a lot of guests who, we talk more about business and obviously personal growth and things like that. But art is definitely something that I'm passionate about, and it lights me up. So this conversation alone is like encouragement for me to go spend half an hour today doing watercolors or something, that I enjoy. And so thank you. I give you credit for changing my day in that way.
Yes.
So the last question, this is the bold life movement after all. What is your definition of living a bold life or being bold?
Living a bold life and being bold for me really starts with listening to the inner voice you have inside of you that's telling you why you're on the planet. And sometimes people need to be hit over the head 20 times before they finally listen to it and get beyond the fear. But if you can take a few minutes a day and tune in to what your calling is, that to me is living a bold life. And you might have people along the way that aren't supporting it, but it's your path, and moving ahead despite fear and despite obstacles and barriers that might show up to try to push you off your path. And if you can stay true to yourself and be authentic, that to me is living a bold life.
I love that. I think that's such an awesome message for people to hear too, as we wind down 2016 and people start thinking about what is their vision for 2017, and is it aligned with what that reason is that you're on this planet,
Oh, exactly.
So, I love that. Bridgette, well, thank you so much. It was so much fun connecting.
Thank you.
I can't wait to stay in touch and get my hands on your book. So congratulations.
That sounds lovely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Bridgette for coming on today's show. I hope this episode was an inspiration for any artists out there to go after their dreams and really make a living from their work if they feel called to do so. While a creative career is not cut out for everyone, Bridgette is a perfect example of what is possible when you stop letting excuses and fears determine your destiny. If you want to get access to Bridgette's book and to get more info about her, head to theboldlifemovement.com/048. And if you liked today's episode, please drop me a comment on social media, or if you watched our conversation on YouTube, leave me a comment below the video. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you next week.